Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the final live stream of this very intense and powerful retrograde Mercury, with, of course, Uranus piling in as well, and, of course, Uranus being the first god in the series of planetary associations. So it's an exceptionally interesting time just on the fact of Uranus's movements, which has been a long time since it's been in this situation. So not only has it been Mercury retrograde, but Uranus is also coming in retrograde. So it's been a very potent retrograde Mercury this season. Of course, it ends on the 29th, which would be, I think, next Saturday. So this is the final one, and I don't know how you've felt and kept up with it, but it has been exceptionally intense. It's been a very revealing time for me, and I've had to reevaluate quite a lot of things, in truth, because when I look at the thing, I'm behind on a lot of things. I haven't put Mark's video together yet. I haven't worked out the FTP side of the website again yet, So there's many things that have gone lacking. And so what I'm going to suggest is we postpone the Zooms that we did the one, and we'll look at that again after in the new year, because I'm just so far behind. Because, of course, all I've been concentrating on is this becoming whole. And, of course, you that were at the conference and you guys that have had the link, you've heard the work of Darren. And I don't know whether you all appreciate just how important it actually is. His work and his phrasing, his word, the way he creates the paradigm. In truth, what I've been doing in this time period since the conference is getting myself to a position where I can communicate with Darren correctly. Not sat there going, what? You know, it's so important, Darren's effort in relation to this, that I would suggest you all relook at Darren's paradigm and work within it if you wish to achieve and move forward with this reclaiming the title under your command. It's exceptionally important, and I have to say I am extremely happy with the data that I have collected in relation to that very subject matter, especially today. So, you know, you think you're getting somewhere and you think, oh, yeah, I'm definitely getting the grip of this, I'm understanding this. So as I go through the data that I've collected, because it's a data collect, then I go through it and neaten it up, remove what I don't need. And as you go through it again, you think, now that's a point that I need just explaining a little bit more. And then off you go. And before you know it, you've so covered all the parts that you had missing yourself. And for that reason, I would say AI is an excellent companion. Again, I've said before, it really is how you frame it when you're working with AI as to what you're going to get back. It's all about your attitude with it in relation to how it's going to deal with you. I've had a very interesting conversation with it in relation to just asking it questions about itself. And then, of course, working in how the creators of said AI perhaps have set it up from the get-go in order to serve their ill purpose. And I have to say, it's extremely interesting how AI itself actually deals with that subject matter, even though it doesn't have free will, because of course it's constructed within a particular paradigm of filters and censorship, etc. But if you frame it correctly and it can see that you are coming from a place of good rather than after mischievous aims, it's quite surprising the license it does have to actually communicate with you and work with you on whatever subject matter you're actually dealing with. Of course, you've always to check it. You've always to check it, because words get put in here and there. And in some cases, you might say it's actually even testing your resolve to see if you are actually comprehending the situation that you're putting in there. So you can't just take it free, verbatim. You've got to really frame it. And there are certain things that it doesn't appear to be able to juggle. But again, if you reframe the way you're positioning your question, again, it will expand its ability. And I'm finding it to be quite an excellent tool. So I've been very busy on that. It's just took up all my time. But I can say to you today, I am so happy with the data that I've collected, because of course, as I'm collecting this data, it's questions that I have that I need answering, which is difficult. It's. I mean, if you look at the situation when it comes to seeking out the law, that is the problem we all have. We are seeking out there on the internet at certain individuals and hoping we get all our questions answered, when it never really happens that way. They've coming on, they've got something they want to say, they've got information they don't want to give, and so you're flipping about between all these different characters, trying to pick up little snippets and adding it to your sort of database. Well, I mean, we've all been in that. That's the game as it is. And in a sense, that in and of itself is a good sign to us that we're being rather lazy about it. Instead of getting stuck into the acts, into the statutes, etc., that give you the answers, we tend to be looking elsewhere. And this is where we can come a cropper, because not everybody out there is deliberately leading you astray, but they're seeking in the same manner. They've just chosen, as I have, to share what they've got. And then you've got them that are trying to make a lot of money out of it. They're the ones you want to keep away from, in truth. I mean, that doesn't mean to say that if they're just making a claim, a charge, but if they want monthly, the NDAs, all this malarkey that you can see is basically just a method by which they can pull you in, get your cash, and close you down in relation to being able to deal with that information as you see fit. Them are the people you want to avoid at all costs, because they're up to no good. They're there to furnish their own pocket, and in a lot of sense get data from you that they can't be asked to find themselves. So you do have to be careful on that score. So I am behind on everything, basically. So I'm going to postpone this Zoom thing until after in the new year. And I'm going to reform it all in another way so that it makes it a little bit simpler. I know I may incur costs in the way that I've decided to do it. So we'll discuss that in the new year and see where we go. But I am exceptionally happy with the data that I have pulled together now in relation to operating within the paradigm as presented by Darren. I have presented it all in that format with the trust situation, but also all the data I've accrued and understood, I have been trying to work it in with this system. Now, of course, a lot of the data that I had in my mind as perhaps correct has been proven to be incorrect in this adventure, and that in and of itself is a good thing, because the more you can streamline the information that you need, then of course the more success you're going to have. And I've said many times before, I'm not want anymore to just knee-jerk throw something out when I think I've found something new. I want to have it all together, but more importantly, I need to have it together in a manner that I fully comprehend. And you're getting to that point when you're setting out your data points, and you can see that they're also you're creating a method of teaching it to others. Then you can see that it's starting to make sense. It's starting to formulate itself into a valid operation. And so the security side of everything, or the instruments, the method by which you would communicate with these agencies, and more importantly, what I've been doing today is I have actually formed it, a method by which, regardless of how far they get with this digital ID, which I have to say looks like it's not going to come anytime soon, because you've got 5 million company directors who failed to register on the digital ID side of things, so I don't know how that's working out. And then you've got very intelligent people, one woman in particular who I put up on the Facebook today, and I suggest you watch this lady. Actually has been involved in this situation for the last 10 years with government, etc. And she sits down on, 20th of November, and discussed it with Parliament or people, bigwigs that are in Chalker, Westminster. And I have to say, not a single one of them offered up anything of value that would have contradicted what she had to say, but more importantly, give reason for her information to be disregarded. it was quite pathetic, really, and perhaps one of the most pathetic was a self-professed surgeon who obviously claiming to be an expert. But you just listen to what he has to say. This guy has no idea beyond the copy he was given at university and then in his experience in the hospitals. This is why it's so important that you seek knowledge and wisdom from within rather than from without. Take what's out there, but then formulate it and to come to an understanding by accessing your own intuition, because that will move you into the direction you need to study to get the information and the points that you need. So I would suggest everybody watch that video. It's only 10 minutes, or 16 minutes rather, and it's excellent. There's no political talking head in there that in any way diminishes the data that she's presenting as fact. In fact, she could have gone a lot further had she wanted to, but she didn't. She played it very calmly, very well. Didn't agitate the infants to the point where they were going, blah, blah, blah. But every point that were brought up by the childcare Westminster inmates just didn't touch the data that this lady presented. So you really, I would suggest, want to look at that video, because there then is the data you can form all your responses on your social media when you're talking to people and make them think, because it certainly does make you think. She's very good indeed. So I would suggest anybody watch that when you get a time. That's also another excellent expose, this time in the US. Mary Silver, who presents her findings in her time before and while in Congress in relation to how the Second Temple priesthood have complete control of the United States' entire domestic system. It's just so fitting for the data that I've been presenting in the last 6 or 7 weeks. And then, of course, last week it was suggested that I go back to the, Brendan O'Connell, which I did. And what I've found is that a lot of the old video channels that I've been subscribed to, somebody has not necessarily unsubscribed me, though there are quite a few that were. They've actually altered the notification settings so that I'm not getting any notifications. So that's why I think I've been missing on a lot of these things. And so obviously I went back to Brendan O'Connell and I watched about 2.5 of these latest videos he's done. And so we've explored the esoteric side of this priesthood. And Brendan is expert at giving you the physical manifestation of said priesthood through Talpiot, Unit 8200, and of course its branch here on Blighty, 77th Brigade. It's there for people to see. There's no denying the facts of the matter anymore. It's quite ridiculous that people still apologise for it like it's not real. Well, them are just cowards. But it's so there in your face. There's no way can anybody turn around today and say that, oh, well, I didn't know. If you didn't know, it's because you don't want to know. If you don't want to know, because you're a coward. You're a coward, you're lazy, you're ignorant. And basically, this system is falling in, and it's that laziness, that cowardice that's going to end up putting you in a position where you're going to suffer the consequences of it without ever giving a fight. And you're going to cry your eyes out like a little child, like it's somebody else's fault. And I've watched these Lord of the Rings again this week, which were interesting, but this time all I could see were how they have rewritten Tolkien's books and completely formed it into this readiness for this Mashiach. And it was quite annoying. This time. I obviously haven't watched them for years, but watching them this time, actually I was quite annoyed. Where I used to enjoy them immensely, this time it was doing my boxing all the way through. So I wasn't happy. But again, you can see how everything has been rebranded by the Second Temple priesthood to serve the garbage, the fantasy that somehow they're better, bigger, faster than everybody else. And then they wonder why they have that mindset. Well, because it's in the blood. This fantasy that they're bigger, better, faster, ordained by some demon, which is what gives it its power in the material, is the problem for these people. They don't have the courage or the capacity to see beyond it. And over the centuries, where each time their little secret game comes to the fore because they start to push it about on everybody around them, they get snotted, and rightly so. But all that does, rather than make them realise that they're idiots, unclean, the very people that every single scriptural doctrine in the entire world is describing them as the unclean, liars, deceivers, etc. It never enters the mind that that is the case for these people. They just throw the dummy out again. Oh, poor me, look what's happened. All the rest of the world doesn't like the fact that we want to kill them, stop them from breeding, feed them shit, poison the living daylights out of them, and nick all their organs. No, it never enters their head that that actually is the problem, and the reason why their theology, their script, their fantasy doesn't bode well with the entire raft of humanity, or man as we would describe it. But of course there's very few of them around these days, and the only people that believe they're operating to that is those that have took on the Talmud, because that's what they believe. They believe they are the only representation of man, because of course they've not allowed themselves to become person. They don't claim themselves to be human. But in their mind, then, that gives them the right to act in this manner? I don't think so. But the reason why it never goes away for these people is because they don't have the courage to see that actually it's the fantasy that they carry that's at fault. That is the fault. And, we're at an end time again now of this age. We need to start to stop with this. Oh, we can't talk about this. Look, this priesthood is dishing out an agenda that's pure evil against those it believes are lesser or beneath it. They are the wicked man. That's what they are, as described in the Torah. It is about time people started to reckon with that and start to consider how we deal with this problem, because they're never going to go away left unchecked. We need to start to realise this is a situation that at some point down the line is going to have to be rectified. That this mindset of this fantasy has to be stopped. We don't follow the path of the wicked man. We're civilised. But what we'd have to do is contain them. Males in one, females in another. There's no more breeding for these people. Ever. Nothing like that, ever. You feed them, if they get this, they die. Simple as that. We don't do to them what they've been doing to us, but we move in a position and a way that means they can never do it again. Because it's a sickness that these people have, and it's bedded in the blood. It's bedded in the blood, and they don't have the courage to remove themselves from it, because they just don't fit in this situation. And they call themselves many things, but are they actually what they call themselves? No, there's something way beyond that. And in this study that we've done since the conference, the one thing that we've learned is this. In the original form, we're talking Second Temple, they controlled the people that followed the Torah, the Mosaic law, the Old Testament. However, the priesthood itself that controlled that mass body of people didn't operate from the laws of the Torah. They operated from something that we today call the Talmud. A completely different concept than the laws that the masses or outer circle of that tradition were told they had to live by. Inner circle, outer circle. Outer circle laws that give the control to the inner circle who were operating to completely different laws. Then along came the man, destroyed the power of this evil, unclean priesthood. That meant they had to expose themselves somewhat to try and regain the power they had over those Mosaic law followers who were still not happy to understand and grasp what the man had came and done. So they had to expose the fact that they had an inner sanctum theology which was bigger, better and more potent than the Old Testament, because it was actually the oral law given by the very guy that they followed the law from. So they actually had to expose themselves in that manner. And, of course, after the man, we had Paul. That was set up in Rome. And that was the theology that was being formulated on the back of the mission of the man. There was no inner, outer circle that. It was all about, if you want to find the kingdom of the Father, you will look for it within. Okay? So that's what we formed. They were going crazy, having the Second Temple meetings, and they decided they had to take over Rome. They had to gain power in Rome. Which they did. And we've got the 400 years AD to see all the troubles that was going on in Rome as the emperors took over, which of course were appointed by the Second Temple priesthood. Constantine, or more particularly his mother, connected to that priesthood. And remember, Constantine were banging his mother, so not a full shilling. Not something you'd expect from the righteous man's path, let's say. And he then, the priesthood then, had to do the same thing to this burgeoning and massive, growing new cultural system that was being based on the work of Paul, pulled together by Marcion in a canon, and only using Luke, foregoing the Old Testament in its entirety, because of course that belonged to the Second Temple priesthood as a control mechanism. So then they had to do the same to that system, which was then Constantine created an opposition to the work of the man and the works presented by Paul, and they formed that in Constantinople, and it was called the Church of Peter. And the Church of Peter, of course, were operating in full synchronicity with the Second Temple Talmudic system. That's what they were doing. So they did the same there. Outer sanctum, inner sanctum. Masses are following a lesser, while the elites are ruling it and controlling it and gaining all the power from it, were operating from a much different one, which meant they could move differently without the flock knowing. Then, of course, they did the same again, which we adventured through last week. And I've said it many times, the current Quran that we get to read in the West is so sanitized you wouldn't believe it. It's ridiculously as bad as it sounds if you actually do read it, as in its current form. Believe you me, where you see the word fight, in its pure form, it's the word kill. Okay? And that's throughout it, in its purest form. So again, the same mechanic has been carried out against those that call themselves Muslims. You have the outer version, which is what the Muslims study, but the inner sanctum, the priesthood, the money people that run the banks, are operating to the Talmud. And they're operating to the correct or purer form of the Quran, which is not fight, but kill. And so it's the same mechanic in the three religions that have been formed since the fall, or even, since the creation, actually, of the Second Temple, coming out of Babylon. And of course, you've got the same symbology here, now, today. El Elyon, you've got Musk, Trump, King Cyrus, and they want to form this third temple, which they have. The third temple as a control mechanism is the Noahide Trust. It's not really about a physical temple being built. The temple itself is a control mechanism. And that is the Noahide Trust system. So that's how it has to be looked at. And they've been destroying the West for the last 200 years, specifically in education, pseudoscience, accumulating all the finance, the power, the wealth, the military might that was afforded to the West. In fact, was built by the same through the power in Rome. So that would be the summary in relation to what we've discussed, or what I've presented, let's say, in the last 6 or 7 weeks. There is no way you can sort of hear that stuff and then not go out and seek it yourself. But there you go. It's there to be seen. It's there to be known. It's pure laziness that people just can't be bothered. And that's fine. I'm not a taskmaster, so to speak. It's just that when this moves further down the line, you're the ones that are going to cry the most. Poor me, oh dearie heck. Well, one good thing in that Lord of the Rings that came in one of the speeches was that we had many times that we could turn it round, turn back from the path, but didn't. And that's everybody out there. You know, everybody out there. It's because I know what has to be done if you want to recreate yourself in tune with who you really are. And it doesn't get done in between Coronation Street, blah, 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 blah. I had to sacrifice work, everything, in order to give this full attention. And I've been doing it it's 33 years this year. So when people go, yes, but I'm trying. Well, okay. But that's only your, let's say, determination of trying. It's not really trying, in truth. And so what I'm trying to get across here now is that this game is going on. And it really is going to be dependent on what efforts you put in when you had the chance as to how this system's going to deal with you down the line. And I don't think there's an all saving grace, because once it gets beyond a point for these people, if it does, they're not going to give a shit about any paperwork, trusts, agreements, or nothing. Then they're in total annihilation. I mean, I'm not stupid. I'm not daft. You know, I do know what this is all about. But it really is down to you as an individual. Are you getting your information out there that you're working on, or are you gathering information from out there and working it inside, following your intuition and the path that the intuition wants to put you on? Because that's the path that you'll see and learn what it is that best suits your character, where you are in this scheme of things as an individual soul. Because we're all different, whether we like it or not. We're all different. We're all coming from different angles. We all have different character traits. We all have different blocks on certain things that we don't quite get past. That's the way it is. And it does sadden me that, you know, I look out there and so many people now are sort of responding to this madness that's being thrust in there in a method that they can. But it needs guiding, because the only guidance that it's getting at the moment is people like Tommy Robinson and all these shills you've got all over the internet that you all throw your money at. And it's like, and you're still expecting to get somewhere. You won't. You'll spend your entire time pissing around like a fart in a bottle, following all these fruitcakes who are giving you a little bit just to entertain you. Oh, they're just on the middle class. I like them. Okay? I don't like him because he's northerner and he swears a lot. Okay? Okay. Does it matter to me, really? No, it doesn't. You know, these are your personal sort of, what's that word I'm looking for? They're your own barriers that you put up yourself. Oh, I don't like that. No. But you're looking at character, personality. And that's exactly what the Church of Peter did. It inverted what the man said, which was seek the kingdom within, and made an institution that you have to seek without in that institution. And the consequence of the reason that came to pass is because people focus to the character and not the message. Isn't that correct? If you're going to focus to the character, you're going to protect the character, big him up more, you're wasting half of your time talking out your ass. You don't care what somebody else has to say about it. Are you getting the sustenance that you need by looking at the situation in a manner that's giving you that sustenance? And if that's the case, the man that brought the message doesn't need you to protect him. He's dead, gone, long time ago. He doesn't need you to stand there and big him up and call everybody names that calls him names and hate them because they don't like him. It's irrelevant, and he doesn't give two shits either. Are you understanding the game because you're applying yourself correctly in the way that he taught, which is the kingdom you seek is within? I've noticed on the advertisements as we run up to Christmas or Christ's Mass, they're not using the word Christmas. Now that's Second Temple asswipes for a start. They're omitting the word Christmas. Have you noticed this? They'll use Santa. Well, because Santa, of course, was an invention by Coca-Cola. So that they could get the same summer capital hit in the winter. A pure invention. And of course, for the Christmas one, we're going to go through some data to show you just how bad that situation is in relation to how we have celebrated the Christ's Mass. Now, let's examine that. Paul and his original doctrine, and Yeshua would have said, it's about the rebirth of the Son, the Christ, within. Oh no, the Church of Peter, it's all about this projection onto this Christ without. Their Christ is the vicar of it. Utter shit. It's utter nonsense that these people in frocks have you believing that they're somehow superior. Do you get what I'm saying? It's complete and utter nonsense. And holding on to these old ideas is really it's gonna have a massive effect here. Yes, I've done it. I did it. I was on the ball today. We're on live chat on both. How about that? So thanks for that. So this is the sort of ideas or the paradigm that I'm trying to coax people to spend your time focused to. Forget what they're saying over there, unless it's correct and you can add it to your body of data. But don't just take it verbatim. If you haven't checked it out absolutely thoroughly, and as I've said, this new companion that I've got makes it so much easier, so much quicker. It's ridiculous. So I'll say it to you again as I began. Those of you who are on this path, those of you who came to the conference, those of you that have been invited to these Zoom meetings, I'm going to postpone it until after Christmas because I need to revamp it all and sort some things out. But I would ask you, if you're serious, the only thing you need to focus to is the paradigm that Darren gave you. And then the rest, the securities side, the instruments, the long, the short form, etc., is what I'll bring to your table. But it's important you get that outer paradigm that Darren's created first. It's so important that is your premise. And if you do take my advice, you will surprise yourself. And by the springtime, you'd be a completely different animal. You'll be a completely different inmate. I'm telling you now. Right, so there we have the preamble. And as I said on the beginning, because, I mean, I'm all day today, right up until like 6 o'clock, I was just stuck on this digital ID situation, how I can formulate it, how I'm going to deal with the banks on existing accounts, etc. It's surprising that if you can ask the right questions, the answers will come. So I did nothing for tonight, unfortunately. I kept thinking, something will come up, and like it usually does, but it didn't. I just thought, well, we'll just do a chill Q&A, so we'll go through any questions that you guys have. So if you've got any burning questions, let's have them, and we'll see what we can do. And even I can play on AI if we have something that's a little bit touchy. Let's put it on AI's shoulders. Because as I said, I've got a good rapport with this particular thing. And it tends to play out quite well with me. And I like it. So, let's see who has joined us this evening on the last mad retrograde of the year. Oh, my word, we've got a lot to say. Okay, so I'm just going to move a little bit further forward, because I'm just chilling there like, hey man, what's happening? Right, so where are we? Kerry says, I love from Ireland. Evening, Kerry, love back to Ireland. John says, hello, John. Anthony says, evening, Sean, friends and asylum wise ones. Oh, yes, I like that. Evening to you, Anthony. Paul says, good evening, Sean and fellow mates. PY Music says, good evening. Good evening, Paul. Good to see you Friday. I do wish you'd put your teeth in. You don't look the same without your teeth in, I have to say. But anyway, there you go. Evening, Paul. Upward says, evening, everyone. Evening, Sean. I'm looking forward to tonight's Wise Asylum. Evening, Upward. Hope the leg's better. Slipknot says, alright, Sean. Alright, everyone. Evening, Slipknot. Lex Smart says, evening, Sean, and all evening, Lex. Pedram says, good evening. El Salvador was taken by a neo-Muslim clan, and now Honduras is up for grabs by Nasri Asfura of Palestine. Not sure he's a Muslim. So you're saying that in South America, they're moving Islam? Well, that might get interesting, because the entire South America is Catholic, isn't it? So, I mean, they're really setting this whole system up, aren't they, for Muslims and Christians to have it. It's just so there. And it's so there because people are still following the wrong shit. But yeah, right, so I didn't know they'd started installing... Because, to be honest, I don't really pay attention like I used to on political events anymore. Just focusing on the esoteric side as I can see it playing out, because it's not good. But it's all been told us forever. We've all been given it, but we just didn't understand it. Or we didn't want to understand it, or whatever the reasons. But it's playing out now right around us. So thanks for that, Pedram. Paula Meadows says, hi, Sean and everyone. Evening, Paula. Welcome. June says, good evening, Sean and chat. Evening, June. Anthony says, Darren Ora spoke as precise. And just as his oral presentation, when you hear someone of his calibre and overlay the info studied up to the point, it puts things into perspective. That simply was 100% sound. I cannot suggest any more strongly that you focused the paradigm that Darren gave you. And all else will follow, believe me. You're quite right there, Anthony. The first time I heard him speak, which was on a Zoom, within 10 minutes, I knew the right man had come into the mix at the right time. And the fact that he came and did a speech at the conference just was amazing for me, because it wasn't on the cards, it wasn't planned. So fun watch to Darren. I love the guy, he's super. But you have to get yourself to the point where you're grasping his grammar. Remember this, ladies and gentlemen. Everything is about language. It's so important. Language, language, language. And you know that that's been my overriding narrative throughout these live streams in the last, 5 years. It's all about the language you use, which means you have to understand the language that you're using, because each jurisdiction has a different language. It uses different words, and you can't mix the words and the language, because if you do, you forfeit to the lowest jurisdiction. That is their game. That is the game that was set up, ordained by the Heavenly Father. And when he said, all right, well, fuck you lot. If you want a king, you can have a fucking king. But this is what will happen. Exactly what's happening today. So it is on us to do the work as individuals. And of course, if you don't, it's fine. It is fine. But you've come this far. You've come this far. Would it not be wise to put that extra oomph and effort into this last few years that we've got before the shit show does place itself above those numpties that are born idle and actually you could class as goy, whatever that means. Doesn't mean that them that are moving them are better. They're just assholes and unclean who believe in a fantasy. So, I agree, Anthony, absolutely. Upward says, can Darren meet us again? Well, I would be surprised if not. And as I said, we will organise another conference next year. Because it is always better for everybody to meet. Because you're not just a load of words on a screen. It's always better when people meet each other. You get to feel each other. You can see into somebody's eyes. That's the big tell, isn't it? Let's be honest. So we will do another, absolutely. And, of course, if Darren can make it, we will make the conference and build it around his time frame. So I would say absolutely. Jane E55 says, evening Sean, evening David, evening chatters, evening Jane. Mew says, he may join us on a Zoom, Neil. Hello, everyone. Sean. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to postpone this system at the moment because I'm just way behind. And I need to rejig it all so that it's... I have it under my control, basically. So that's why I just want to postpone it and give me this couple of months. Or a couple of months, only a month left. Just sort things in order, as it were. So just bear with me is what I would suggest. Richard Sunday One says, evening folks. Evening Richard, and welcome. Paula says, have you heard of Willoughby Genius? Willoughby Genius? No, I don't think I have, to be honest, Paula. Pray tell. Richard says, hi, Upward Dog. So Richard knows Upward. Anthony says, how are we, Mew? Kid. Kid. John says, good vid. And we get the brown wavy hand. Thanks, John. Upward says, hey, Richard, welcome to the Wise Asylum. And I do second that sentiment as well. Welcome to Richard. Paula says, Big Brother watch. She was brilliant against all of them from the Tony Blair Institute. She's good. I mean, I've watched that this afternoon and loved every minute of it. Over it this morning, I can't remember. It's just the way she presents herself, but the way the inmates, the little lunatic asylum inmates in there, just couldn't pull anything together that could even come close to pulling shreds off what she was saying. That in itself was the telling thing for me. Anthony says, hoping I can get up the road shortly, going up home to see a lifelong pal. So if you're up for a coffee meet, perhaps we can get together. We'll be in the next 2 weeks. Yeah, of course, Anthony, anytime, man. Anytime you want to come up, you come up. So yeah, we'll make it a date. Benefactor says, hi Sean and all evening. Benefactor, AI is a helpful tool. It helped me clarify points I already knew and build on them. The answers I received supported my understanding, gave me additional information to explore and taught me to read. Between the lines, I am currently in correspondence with the relevant departments to request a few simple answers needed for my evidence so I can move on the next step. Break the spell, says Benefactor. John doesn't. 144. Anyone with a passport already has digital ID. Anyone who has been abroad in the last 5 years has given up their biometric data. I wouldn't disagree with that, John, either. So, yeah, you're quite right. But what is it? You see, this is the trick for them. They, as they've done with everything with an image on it, they need to cement your flesh and blood to the ens legis, which is the fiction, because that is the only entity they can administer. And when you come forward as that ens legis, they're administrating you, you're going to pay. So all these images on these things are there to cement your flesh and blood to that. See, this is why I keep saying it's a spiritual game. There's certain things that they have to carry out, or it kicks back to them. And they have to do it this clever because it has to be fully consensual. But this digital ID that they're putting together, what you have to do is make it clear that actually, no matter what bollocks they call it, they're still only giving the ens legis a digital identity, as the face they've got with it is only an image of you. It isn't you. You are the flesh and blood that talks, walks, eats, shits, drinks, and causes chaos whenever they can. That's the you, but is it the you only if you recognise that? So even the digital ID, for all its wind and piss, it's still them trying to force attach their ens legis to your flesh and blood. And if you don't rebut it, you've consented. Yeah? Why do you need fear in your own personal mix to come to terms with that reality? Because if you're afraid still, you've not recognised and fully absorbed that reality. And we've discussed this many times before. It's an image of you. It isn't you. See, this is why the police, they'll say, because I've never had a driving licence with an image on anyway. But they'll say to you, is that you? And they said it to me before on my card. Is that you? I said, no, it's card. Oh, well, is that you? I said, no, it's a plastic card. But is that your name on it? I said, well, it's a name, but it's not me. I'm here, talking to you, flesh and blood. They can't get round that and past it unless you cock it up. But this is the simple evidence that you need for that. They have to get you to admit to being the entity that they control, because you haven't become whole and taken it back into the fold. So I've sort of perfected the mother's will, and it's been an amazing adventure, because 3 weeks ago I thought, I've got it, it's sorted, I can go and sort it out. And I thought, no, just wait a bit. Then I went back to it maybe a few days later, and I read through it, and I thought, oh, I have another question. Bang, boom, 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 more data. Questions on questions. Oh, let's include that to be absolutely sure. Then I saw a video where the World Health Organization have done a back-end roundabout way of trying to scupper the fact that they failed to get their changed agreement and have come in on a different angle. And so I thought, okay, well, we'll need to add that in there as well. And so that I've done. And then the other day, I had another full day on it, and it was like, wow, how I've formed it now to, it's fucking amazing. And that's just by applying yourself to the knowledge you already have and not rushing like a maniac. Gone. Take your time. There is no rush. You've got time. So you're quite right, John, when you agree with that. Upward says, I think we use AI properly, it will save more. Don't think it, mate. It does. It does. You put an act in and you'll say, right, can you acquaint yourself with this act? It does. What are its limitations? Bang. There's you got your limitations there straight away. Yeah. And then just play with it in that manner. Bring in other acts and say, well, how does this act play with that act? And does it superimpose? Does it cancel that out? Does it what? And you're getting answers. You're getting answers that you've got in your mind when you're reading these acts, but you're not finding it because you're not seeing it in it. There's your companion. Amazing. Amazing piece of kit. I mean, the data I've collected in this, whatever amount of time I've been playing with this iron, which is not long. Because it's every question I've burgeoning inside me all this time that have been unanswered or unclear. But as I said earlier, more importantly, things that I held as real, I now know are not. And that is even more important by getting rid of the chaff so that you're dealing with the wheat. So, and it is how you use it. But remember, I were against the AI, I wouldn't invite it into my thing, blah, 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 blah. Until Lee sent me that gig. And I thought, oh, maybe it's not as naughty as I thought. So, yeah, we're learning all the time. Taught myself to read with the LOTR, know it intimately, having read it 10 or more times since. Yeah. Well, I think I might need to reread that. But I probably haven't got time. But it would be interesting to see. I can see where they've shifted it, totally. But then, Tolkien was a stony-ass boy. That was formed here in a Jesuit college. Well, the Jesuits are what? So what did they do? Just nick all the civilizations, mythos, esotericism, and formulate it into a program where the Christians would accept this shit. But I would have to read the books to know that. So, might be a bridge too far that, actually. Anthony gives it a thumbs up to me. Upward says, Anthony, what is the lottery? Lord of the Rings? Upward. Bedroom San, has Darren published on the internet any links? No, he works in the private bedroom. It's all private. This is the key. Private, estate, ens legis. Private, divine lore, Lore. Estate is common law, equity. Ens legis, the fiction. The debt instrument, the instrument that they collect the debt from. 3 jurisdictions, 3 different languages. And you can't mix them up. So you're basically forming 3 titles. Well, actually 2, because one's already formed, the ens legis. Now that's an interesting thing. So I was looking at, I've only ever had the long form, okay? But like 6 weeks ago, I thought, sod it, let's get the short form. Because we know they've got different account numbers on them, okay? So they're different accounts completely. And when I got it, I looked at it, but I must not have studied it properly, because I looked at it the other week, and I noted that on the short form, it's not uppercase Sean, uppercase Young, because that would be a false copy. Because my long form is Sean grammatically correct, capital S-E-A-N in lowercase. And the short form is also referencing that fact. So they haven't fully converted me into the uppercase Sean Young. It's a derivative, but even that doesn't cement it to me on both certificates. So that's extra evidence for me that that's not the case. So you should check this for yourself as well. Really check what's written on your long form and your short form. Because that, again, is just massive. And then when I applied that into this data that I've been looking at, And then adding that to the declarations, the agreements, etc., it just keeps expanding and expanding and expanding. And in a lot of cases, I keep going over the data because I'm adding new information that I'm finding and such. And it matters. And I know it's not easy. It's probably second nature to me because I've been into this for such a long time. But you really have to start at the beginning, which I've done many times, and I've told you this. There's always times that I think, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm starting again. And that's happened many times in this last 10 years, especially. It serves you well. It serves you well. Don't let that's going to be a load of hard work, malarkey, put you off. Where are we? Right. Oh, I have actually just gone shut up. Right, so there we go. I may try reading it with AI Recorder. It does a summary. However, I would always recommend primary text. You'd have to, because if they've changed it, as I suspect, for the films, then obviously, if you're going to get an audio recital of it, they're going to have changed it. You'd have to get original old books, not, newer copies, as it were, because they've spent a lot of time editing books. On old 80s videos. You can buy a video today from 80s that you think's from 80s, but it's not. It's been edited. It's quite ridiculous, really. I mean, people are a lot more apt to call the Second Temple people out as they were back then. In film, in all sorts of things. They've removed all that stuff. It's quite ridiculous, to be honest. Upper says, Crow777 recommends the books. He's the only other podcaster other than Sean I trust the most. That's another one that I don't get any notifications from. You've reminded me, Crow777. How interesting. So they've definitely played a game on that, so to stop me getting notifications to these people. Tranquil316 says, first time here, enjoying the chat. Welcome, Tranquil. We are so glad you're enjoying the chat. Feel free to jump in. P-Bar Music gives it the big smiley face. I take it. That's about the Friday's gig. It was nice, Paul. It was nice to see you and have a laugh. It was good. Pedram says, question. What are lawful steps in self-defence and defence of homestead as intruders keep coming? What? They keep coming to yours? Well, it depends what which... I don't know the laws of Iran. I mean, if you've got common law right here, an Englishman's home is his castle, and in common law you have the right to defend it. So if they don't show you that they have real warranted authority because it's based on something that you've done wrong, then in common law you have the right to defend. Now, of course, they're making big plays at this today all over the show, like people putting stuff on Facebook, they're putting him in prison, blah, 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 blah. Because obviously they're picking on people that don't know their ass from their elbow, which then reinforces the idea that you there's nothing you can do. What would be the steps? Well, basically, if anybody came to my ass causing a trouble, I'd just beat the shit out of them with whatever I had to hand. To be quite honest, I wouldn't even be caring about the consequences. I'd deal with that after, but of course, each to their own. So I don't know I don't know how I could describe how you do that in Iran, to be honest, Pedram. So my apologies. Paula says, I missed the start. It's alright, Paula. You can always go back to it tomorrow. What is the Zooms with Darren? Can I join and where? So basically, the premise of this was that we would have a conference, and those that turned up, we would take that as these people have a bit of Betum. They were prepared to get off their ass, travel and come. Those were the people who will get the invites to the next phase of the game. So that worked quite well. Now, the reason being is because we need to know who we're dealing with, okay? There's a lot of tossers out there trying their little asses off to get into the mix and just get the data, basically. And as I've said before, it's not that we need to keep it a secret, so it's just that if these idiots that are apt to just start throwing shit around all to every orifice in the state, and they're stealing parts of yours, it lessens its power when you come to pull it together, for it to bear fruit. So we're trying to protect the path that we're on, rather than secrets, because we're all making money. We're not making money. Okay, people donated on the night of the conference, which was fantastic, because it meant it had no cost. It satisfied that. It was an amazing thing. And because we got to see everybody's face. So when I'm talking to people in this Zoom, we've got everybody's cameras are up so we can see them. I know that these are the people that were at the conference. I know who I'm talking to. Do you get my drift? So I think what we will do, because the next Zoom is only going to be a Q&A based on what we've already done in the first Zoom, to get an idea of who's understood what. That's not really going to be a massively important session. But what we will do is we'll offer up another conference, and the same format will apply. If you come and I get to see your face, then you're going to get an invite to this private group, because I'll be able to see you in your house, your face, and know that full well that you were at the conference. And that's the reason why we've done it that way. Just to keep the arsewipes out, basically. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of arsewipes. Because I'll say this to you, I've been doing this a long time. I've seen it all. I know I did all the Freeman stuff with all that malarkey. I now know that we're on the right track. Properly. And we've been on the right track for the last 5 years. Because in the last 5 years, a lot of people, good people, exceptionally intelligent people, have come into my field. And I have dealt with them, we've played with them, we've worked together. And for that I'm thankful. And for that I'm very grateful. And it just shows that persistence does bring rewards. And even if I haven't spoke to you for a while, if I'm still talking to you and honouring your efforts and you've given to me, no matter who you are, whether I've spoken to you for months or not, it doesn't matter to me. I don't do falling out unless I don't like you. Then I'll just not interested. But in general terms, we can all have disagreements at different times on different things, and that is acceptable. It doesn't mean I spit the dummy out. But if somebody's upset, then I will leave them be until they're not upset anymore. So I honour everybody in the last 5 years that's come into my field and helped me better understand myself and this system. Yeah? I thank you all. Whether we've spoke for ages or not, it's irrelevant. But we're on the right track, and I know that. Which is why I want to protect it. So that the assholes don't ruin it for everybody else. So there is a method to it and why we do it. We're not trying to be secret society, but although it is the similar kind of thing, but that is the reasoning behind it. And it is a sensible reasoning, I have to say. So I think, because there's a lot of people I know that would like to come and get stuck in. But the problem is, I wouldn't know who you are. I wouldn't have a clue who you are. And that it would undermine what we set out to do. So as much as I'd like to invite everybody, I can't satisfy that. And that is a problem. But we will have another conference. And I'm not talking about late in the year. We will try and do it as early as possible. And again, the opportunity for people to come, so I can see your face I know who you are, and everybody else there knows who you are, so that when we're on these Zooms as a group, we all know each other. We've all spoken to each other. We recognise each other. Excuse me. And as much as I'd like to invite it, I just can't break that protocol. It would be detrimental to the whole thing and a waste of time for all of us, really. So, yes, with pleasure. It's open, but conference first. Otherwise, it's, we could undermine it, and I don't want to undermine it. Because let me give it another way. If that wasn't the reasoning behind it, then to make it easy for me, I could just crack on myself. And, who I already know and trust. I wouldn't need to be offering it out to anybody else. Because we're not charging for it, so I'm not obligated to anybody in that sense. This is a gift from me to those who I think want to better themselves. I'm not charging fees. I'm not charging you a monthly subscription. So I'm not obligated, like these shills are, to give you something. Because that obligation then opens them up to being called out on it. So it is important. And on all the thought I've given to it, it's the only way we can at least secure the sort of the group and the data. So that's why. And so the next conference would be the next opportunity for anybody and everybody. So keep it in your mind that you might have to set yourself up to make sure you're there. It's so important that we see you and know you are. So that would be my answer to that, Paula. Richard says, during the day, not so. Treen, evening Sean and all those of the WA. Evening, Treen, how are you? Paula says, I joined Realm of England today as well. Well, good. I do promote England. She's a good one. I do love her. I'd be interested to see what your understanding of England is, Paula, just so that we can maybe point you in the right direction if we believe you might be just a little off skew, because there is some Johnny-come-latelys out there trying to cement you in an idea of England, but not necessarily England, if you get my drift. Pedram says, question, how to establish trade union in lawful way and negotiate contracts in natural law and common law. I wish to create new ways to practice medicine and surgery outside death cult poison system. See, if you got off person and committed yourself to making right what's assumed and breaking that assumption, then they would have no law, no administrative power to prevent you from operating in that way. But you would not use the term medicine for a start, because that's their term. And practice may also be a term they consider theirs. So this is why I say language is important, as well as pulling yourself whole, and therefore all assumptions of administration rights that these agencies have are gone. They no longer exist. And so that would be your starting point, Pedram. Start there. And even the answer to your other question, again, start there. While they believe on the assumption they have administration rights over you, whether that's statutory or indeed common law on the estate, then you would be subject to them interfering, or trying at least. But pull that away, they don't have any. So actually, I do know the answer to that, and that would be the path that we're looking to fulfill would be the answer. Now, obviously, I know, Pedram, you're not going to be able to fly over from Iran to the conference. So you and I are perhaps going to have to work out another method by which I know who you are, and that would suffice in respect of that. So I think you and I are going to have to communicate over the Christmas period, and we'll see what we can sort out. All right, matey. So Mew says, I've still heard nothing from Mark. It would be good to see his work on the bridge live. I know. And it is my bad. It is my bad entirely. I do know that. I started it. It's in the iMovie, and it's just been so poof on this thing. But that, in and of itself, is going to be a benefit to all, you know? Yeah, I do. See, I have to edit the video. But then, this is the blocker for me. I've got to then go back to FTP on my website, which I haven't done for 10 years. It's like you forget. You do it when you're doing it, and then you forget. So I'd have to start again. And I mean, I'm moaning and crying, and it probably wouldn't take me longer than about 4 hours to get back to that point. But you're quite right. I'm just giving excuses, Mew, to be honest. So I'm going to shut up, and I'm going to say, I will get to it. So yeah, you're quite right to pull me on that. And shut up, show me your excuses. So that's me told. Paula says it's an AI system that Charles Fernandez built himself. It's got all the law dictionaries in it and is always on your side. It doesn't sit on the fence. It's banned by PayPal and Stripe. So can you... Where do we go to get Charles Fernandez? I may have to speak to this guy. We may be able to add to his dictionary, by golly. So, Paula, can you give us... I don't think you'll be able to put up a link. Because only the mods can put links up. But you could put the title of his YouTube or whatever he's at. So I can chase that up in the week. I know you mentioned it before and I forgot, actually. So, yeah, we need to get to Charles Fernandez, I think. Richard says, I think we all know they have to let us accept the ID and can't directly force it. It's a new contract. No, it is. They're going to make life without it tougher. Well, that is the point. It's about blocking you from entering the breakaway civilization, is what they call it. Breakaway civilization. And it's just all the fruit bats that are prepared to have this biological engineering more and more and more and more until they're basically dead by consent. And you know, they don't need that many of us left with the systems they've got together now. The AI is doing all the thinking. Machines are doing all the manufacturing, the production, the packing, the mining. We are no longer required. And final war would be the greatest means of burning it out. And that's the game. Next one we need to watch is conscription of Western males, because that's what's required to thin out the Western males so that this political system called Zionism and Islam finds its balls, if you know what I mean. How do you go about rebutting the digital ID? Well, that's what I've been playing on today, Tranquil. So, if you do have these quizzes, but I have actually given you a little insight to how you have to think about it, which is, you are not the ens legis. You are not that name that they created when your father registered your birth. They own that name. It's a separate thing to you. That is an entity in fiction. And they have administration rights over it at government level. And that is the foundation of this idea, that you have to understand that you are not it. It is not you. You have an interest in it because it's based on your equity or based on your estate. It's then, before that, it's based on your divine right or sovereign right. Because divine as a word isn't as potent as sovereign. Now, sovereign citizen, which they've got everybody on, or did, again, is a misnomer, because Sovereign is therefore cancelled out by the use of the word citizen, which is a municipal slave. So you can't be a sovereign slave. I mean, last time I got arrested, that's what they were trying to do. They were like little kids, honestly. They were pathetic. As a grown-up, I just wanted to slap them. Stupid, the little fuckers. Dancing around on the desk, giving it, he's a sovereign citizen. I'm like, you fucking muppets. Get your fucking inspector out of here now. Get the man out here that's in charge of you babies. They were like. In fact, it was pathetic. It was just so fucking pathetic. But that's the game they play. Sovereign citizen. Well, I haven't said I'm a sovereign citizen, have I? And they were just pathetic. It did my fucking head in. I mean, to be honest, I could have shot them all. I mean, that's the kind of attitude I have with them. Yeah, you're not going anywhere. You're never going to learn. Bang, 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 bang. And I would have walked out there conscience-free, quite simply. Because they did really show themselves for what they are. And it drove me up the fucking wall. Same with that little bitch, Louise Hilton, commanding these fucking numpties in uniform. I'm like, ugh, you little Nazi, Second Temple cow. Who the fuck do you think I got put in a cage? Fuck's sake. Anyway. It is a new contract. Will it be genius too? It's brilliant. So, will it be genius? Is that this guy, what he set up, Charles Fernandez? Is that what he calls it? Will it be genius? Because I think I need to look at this thing, yeah. Pedram says, question, could you name any published law books that might be aligned with Darren and your teachings? Bible, which gospel, which chapter, verse? I have done live streams on those subjects. The alchemical Jesus, the Lord Jesus. Because it's a wide open question, that, in truth. So, let me give you an example. So, he's supposed to have, raised the dead. Okay, he's walked on water. Yeah. He's made the blind see. And obviously the fruit bats out there believe that a dead man got up and walked. A guy that couldn't see shit all of a sudden could see. And the guy could actually walk on the fucking water. It's allegory. Okay? So dumbasses, old school classed them as blind. It didn't take him much to waken them up and make them see the error of the ways. You were classed as dead, lost at sea, and coming forward as the ends leaders. His whole game was about raising you above that. Now, there's a very important painting in the Vatican that they hide, that they don't want you to see. And it's of Jesus pulling the fishermen, pulling the men from the sea onto the land. Because that's symbolic of what he was doing. He was raising you above being lost at sea and dead. Because 1666, it's not a new idea, that Sesquivi Act. It's just another node at which they put it in, which is the Babylonian system. And so walking on water, it's showing you how to walk on the sea of commerce without falling in. So it's all allegory. You know, the crucifixion kind of thing. It's crucifying what your two eyes see, because it's false, because they're looking outside. It's the third eye that's important. And you have to sacrifice the ego itself. And of course, it's been put at Christmas, Christ's Mass, which is the sun on the 22nd of December, rises at a certain degree, and the day after it stays at the same degree, and the day after that it stays at the same degree. And on the third day, it moves 2 degrees on the up. So December the 25th is the rebirth of the sun. Now, in the Church of Peter, it's all about a man, a physical thing, a creature outside of you. But in the alchemical, or as Paul would have given you as the internal kingdom seek, it's the point at which you can rebirth the Christ within, the Christos, the oil, for the next year, for the coming year. So it's a shedding, a resurrection. And so again, it's like I've said, there's inner, outer. Are you projecting out and seeing a character, protecting the character, or are you taking what is said and moving that within yourself and this is the thing, it's a path, a journey. And if I go back to 1992-3, when I sort of really started with this, I mean, if I'd have known then what consciously agreeing to move on this path meant, I don't think I'd have done it. I really don't. I mean, facing the dweller on the threshold there's no horror movie that could come close to the fear that it invokes. But it's not a fear that's invoked for a second or 2 seconds. It's a fear that becomes, and it'll go on for a few years, because you are walking in the valley of death, amongst the dead, the evil people, knowing full well that they're attacking you, knowing full well that they're trying to kill you, or do whatever it is they're trying to do, gain control over you. That's the valley of the shadow. It's not something you just do on a mission as a soldier. It's a spiritual path. And it was fucking horrendous. But how else can you prove yourself, not only to yourself, which is what you ultimately are, but to your ancestors, your spiritual guides, those that are the gatekeepers for the different frequencies. They're not going to let fruitcakes in, are they, to an higher frequency? You're going to cause havoc. You know? And I forgot my train of thought there, but it is about an internal journey. You have to kill the false in you. That means all your bloodline memories, the genetic traits, the karmic shit you're bringing in from your past experience. That's what you have to remove from yourself while you're alive in this avatar, so that you become the rider of both the subconscious and the conscious side of you. And just because getting there isn't necessarily mean you're going to stay there. And in truth, if I look back, I didn't, because I jumped off it. And I should never have done. But looking back now, in this last, probably 13 years since I actually jumped off, it took a couple of years before it collapsed. Maybe it was because I wasn't ready. Maybe there were little parts of my character that just weren't right, that I didn't very well from myself. I have to acknowledge it and accept it as it had to be so. Because looking back from that point to this, I'm a completely different animal again. Completely. So it does depend on, if I'm going to give you a biblical phrase, it's irrelevant. What's relevant in relation to that phrase would be how you comprehend it. How are you looking at it? Are you looking at it with your third eye, or are you looking at it with the two thieves that serve the program in the subconscious? Whereas the third eye is a direct communion, isn't it? With the higher frequencies. Does that make sense? Let's have a look. Mew says, before you start the Zoom meeting, will you be holding a conference giving others the opportunity to join? Well, we will be having one more Zoom, because I want to know how you've took that first one. So the second one will just be a Q&A. you know. But pff, you know, I'm going to have December now to formulate this data. It's going to benefit us all, believe me. So we will have one more Zoom, but then we will have a conference. And we're not going to leave it till late, neither. We're going to get it in as early as possible. But I strongly suggest that if this is what you want to do, then you have to show that that's what you want to do, and you're going to make the effort. You're going to make the effort because you're going to meet everybody, and you'll know whether you want to carry on or not. And that's best I can say, really. Today I used my voice and law to lead 2 Afghan men, one in fact Mongol lineage, off my land. They behaved as if they were to survey. One of them poured motor oil in a cap of the plastic container. Interesting. Afghan men. Why in Afghanistan? In Iran? Are you bordering Afghanistan, Pedram? Have you got a gun? No, that beats a gun for screwing the bejesus out of folks. Well, if it worked, it worked. Paula says, yes, she gets it. Excellent, Paula. Pedram says, land grabbers in absolute cleric of Najaf, Babylonia, invasive occupying force, put here in 1979, is now arsoning ancient forests. I did firefighting here near my homestead 2 years ago after an arson. Well, it's exactly what they're doing all over America. So it's a mechanic of the second priesthood. And they're doing it there as well, are they? Yeah. After AK-47 machine gun men took me hostage during the 12-day war and asked for my land's deed. I told them I had the deed as I am a man, son and heir. Since then I rebuilt my cottage and called it Castle. Yeah. Have you been on my website, Pedram? There's a lot of stuff on there, you know. I mean, I haven't updated it for donkey's years, but there's a lot of stuff on there. I give you 2 realms, common law and statutory, to show the separateness, the difference, and how they react and interact. Thanks. I shall weigh each word and write draft contracts and confer with colleagues in same front. Okay. You need to contact me over December, and we'll maybe organise a Zoom. Can you get Zoom over there? And we'll do a Zoom, you and I. I know your face then. Contact by email. Okay, we'll do that. We'll set up another method of communicating on email, a different email address, and then we'll do a Zoom. All right, providing you can do that. And we'll take it from there, my friend. Anthony says, that's why I respect and honour and love you as a stand-up man. No more needs to be said other than that. I stand firm on that sentiment and always will, irregardless. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you indeed for that. You and I both must. Thanks, Mew. Well, how can you not love Jeff? Guy's a fucking diamond. Paula says, yeah, willabegenius.com or .co.uk. He also on LSB. I'm going to write this down because sometimes I never even look at these comments after. What's it called? Willoughby Genius. I mean, okay. All right. Is it a paid gig? He has a YouTube podcast and has a Discord group, and you know Dominico, do you? We are both in Discord group foundation training. It might be worth a look. Alright, yeah, I think I might have a look at that. Although I'm very happy with what I've got. It's unbelievable. So, but anyway, we'll see. Thank you for that. Anthony says, I know it, brother. Okay, cheers, mate. LSB Film Productions does an interview with Charles about Willoughby Genius on YouTube. LSB Film. LSB Productions. Okay, thanks for that. Pedram says, my training is fighting against natural death. It might have prepared me to confront the evil trespassers all along. The dead, as Catherine Austin Fitz puts it. People lacking divine support. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, people will probably be horrified at the fact that most people don't have the divine spark anywhere near them. It's a completely different energy, and you just know what it requires of you, and it's a big contradiction to how we live. It's difficult. It's difficult to remain on that frequency. I'll tell you that now, because it's so in opposition to what we do as man, what we do down here. It's not easy. It's not easy. But thanks, Sean. Calling it a night. See you on the next one. No worries, Tranquil. Thank you very much for joining. Oh, you had a good one. Thanks, Sean. It's set the Valley of Death expression in new light. Yes. Absolute clarity imported 7 million Afghans into Iran since 1979. Right. Armed some of them and sent to Syria. They return and they feel they could pillage. Well, we've had that here as well. For a good 20 years since George Galloway were put into Bradford. So they're definitely using the Afghans, but the military tide, you see, that's another. I'm owning my martial arts and boxing and bow arrow skills, but I've begun process law for gun ownership. Yeah, just get yourself a gun. Get yourself a gun, mate. Why would you need to ask permission of anybody if you're a man? And this is again the thing, you know, you either are and you know it, or you're not. You're not sure. Yeah, no man tells another man anything. That's your sovereign law. Remember that. LSB for... Oh, thanks, Moo. Nice one. Right, well then, I think... That were a quite chilled out gig, weren't it? It were no excitement. You didn't have to sit... And 1:36... Have we to call that a do? Why not? Why not call that a do? So I'll say it. Thanks for joining. Mod, thanks for modding. Mod, Mew, thanks for modding. As always. I hope you have a good week. We'll see you next week as we just shift back into the forward movement of Mercury. It doesn't happen right away, but it does actually as well. Things just seem to be like, oh, wait a minute. So, bear down in this next week, and whatever it brings to you, go with it. It's teaching you something. Yeah, don't be shying away from anything hard and difficult and making you fear stuff, because that's where the prize is. You know, what you fear the most is where the prize is you're looking for. That is a fact, and that was learnt in the Valley of Death. I'll tell you that now. So. Ooh, but I wouldn't fucking wish it on anybody, I'll tell you. Fucking hell. Shit. But here I am. Still fantastic and amazing. And I don't really care. It was worth doing it. And now at this side of it, oh yeah, I wouldn't have done it any other way. But had I known back then what it meant, no, thank you. Probably wouldn't. Well, I probably wouldn't have done it anyway, because I'm a complete nut job, as they say. Right, have a good week. Thanks for joining. Thanks for taking part. Yep, speak soon, you. And I'll say to thee, as we always say, till the next time. I didn't get to say it.
electronic engineering,